Close your eyes and imagine the sky above you. Have you ever felt the hush of a great wing passing overhead? Not the wing of a bird you know, not the flutter of sparrow or crow, but something vast, something so immense that it changes the air around you. The sky itself seems to lean closer, as though it, too, is listening. Tonight, I want you to rest beneath that sky with me. We will not rush, we will not worry about tomorrow. For a little while, the only thing that matters is the steady pulse of the stars, the slow drifting of clouds, and the deep silence that comes when you open yourself to an old story. The night sky has always been a canvas for human imagination. When you tilt your head back and see the glitter of countless stars, you may feel small, but you may also feel connected, part of something ancient and endless. Long before cities dimmed the heavens with light, the stars shone with even more brilliance. They were constant companions for those who walked the earth, markers of time, guides for journeys, and symbols in tales whispered across generations. In that darkness, far from the fires of camp or the comfort of home, people looked upward and wondered what lived beyond the reach of their eyes. Imagine lying by a fire on the edge of the plains. The air is cool against your skin, carrying the smell of earth and smoke. The flames pop and crackle, sending sparks into the black sky like tiny messengers. Beside you, family or neighbors lean close, their faces lit in gold and shadow. The storyteller clears their throat softly. In that pause, in that breath before words begin, everyone becomes still. It is in this silence that the Thunderbird enters, not as a myth to be dissected, not as a symbol in a book, but as a living presence that hovers just above the clouds, waiting to be called forth. The Thunderbird is no ordinary creature. It is not simply a bird enlarged to impossible size. It is a being that carries the storm on its wings, whose eyes flash like lightning, whose voice rumbles as thunder. Yet for all its power, it does not exist to frighten. Instead, it reminds us that the world is alive, that sky and water and mountain are not empty but full of spirit. For the people who first told its stories, the Thunderbird was not something apart from daily life, it was woven into it, as familiar as rain, as intimate as breath. Perhaps you have felt something like it before. The sudden quiet just before a storm, when even the insects fall silent. The heaviness of the air, pressing gently on your skin. Then, the first crack of thunder, deep, rolling, as if the earth itself had spoken. In those moments, did you not wonder if someone, or something, was moving just beyond the clouds? The Thunderbird is that wondering, given shape. It is the answer that says, yes, there is something watching, something vast and powerful, and it flies for reasons larger than we can know. As you listen, allow yourself to drift into that way of seeing. Forget for a while the explanations of science, the neat diagrams of weather patterns. Imagine instead that thunder is the beating of wings, that lightning is the blink of a great and watchful eye. Feel how much more intimate the world becomes when you grant it such life. You are no longer small beneath an indifferent sky, you are part of a story unfolding above and around you. The clouds are not obstacles to the stars, but curtains drawn back by a giant hand. Rain is not accident, but gift. Storm is not chaos, but presence. In this way, the Thunderbird is not only a legend but also a teacher. It reminds us that human beings have always sought relationship with the unseen. To live on the land without cities, without steel or glass, was to feel the elements as companions, sometimes harsh, sometimes kind, always worthy of respect. Stories like the Thunderbirds were not told to pass time idly. They were told to shape the way people walked through life, reminding them to honor what sustained them and to remain humble before what they could not control. If you close your eyes now, you may feel yourself lying on that ancient ground, with grass beneath you and stars wheeling endlessly overhead. The fire warms your face, and the voice of the storyteller flows like water, slow and patient. The words do not rush, because there is nowhere to rush to. Each sentence is like a drumbeat, steady and deep, guiding you into a place where sleep and memory mingle. You are safe here. You are part of the circle of listeners, part of the long chain of human beings who have tilted their faces skyward and whispered questions into the night, and so, the legend begins. It begins not with a battle, not with a hero, but with you, listening. It begins with your willingness to imagine, to let the ordinary sky unfold into something more. The Thunderbird hovers there, unseen yet present, waiting to spread its wings across your dreams. You need not fear it. It is not here to harm you, but to remind you that even the most familiar things, rain, clouds, thunder, can be wondrous when viewed through another's eyes. Tonight, as you rest, let the story carry you. Let the stars above you be more than distant suns. Let the silence between thunderclaps be a pause in which you can breathe, deeply and easily. There will be time for detail later, for tales of protection and power, for the many ways different nations shaped the Thunderbird in their memory. For now, simply rest in its presence. Feel the hush of wings, vast and gentle, passing across the sky, and if this story already stirs your curiosity, you might consider subscribing, so you can return to many more nights of history told gently. Picture the world before machines, before noise. Only wind, water, and the steady heartbeat of the earth. Imagine the silence of a night without engines, without the faint hum of electricity, without the buzzing restlessness of modern life. In this quieter world, every sound mattered more. The cry of a bird echoed across valleys, the whisper of wind through pine needles carried messages, and the rhythm of your own breath merged with the breath of the land. This was the world of the peoples who told the stories of the Thunderbird. It was not empty, not barren, but alive with presence, mountains, rivers, forests, plains, each holding its own spirit, each woven into human life as intimately as family. If you walked across the North American plains centuries ago, you would see grasses taller than your waist, rippling like waves beneath a sky so vast it felt endless. Buffalo herds moved slowly across this sea of green and gold, their hooves drumming the ground with a sound as steady as thunder. To live here was to understand the horizon, to read the shifting patterns of light, to know when storms would come. Each gust of wind told a story, each bird's flight marked a change in the season. The Thunderbird's legend was not an invention to entertain. It was a reflection of this constant dialogue between land, sky, and people. Travel north, and the forests closed around you, dense pines and hardwoods, rivers winding like silver ribbons between them. The smell of resin and damp moss clung to the air. Villages stood where riverbanks widened, homes built of bark or timber, smoke rising gently from fires within. Children splashed in the shallows, women wove mats or tended cornfields, men set out in canoes carved smooth as the water they traveled. Life was shaped by cycles, planting, harvesting, hunting, preparing. But alongside these rhythms ran the constant thread of story. The Thunderbird lived in the cracks of thunder, in the shadows of the tall trees, a reminder that human lives were never apart from the larger forces swirling overhead. Further west, mountains rose like guardians, their peaks capped in snow even in summer. To climb their slopes was to feel the air thin, the world grow still. Here, storms could sweep in suddenly, lightning striking ridges with fierce brilliance. For those who called the mountains home, the Thunderbird was a familiar neighbor. Its wings were glimpsed in the roll of clouds, its voice in the rumble that followed lightning across the peaks. When storms broke, people huddled together in shelters, telling stories that explained not only what thunder was but why it mattered, why it came, why it passed, why it returned. What unites all these landscapes, the plains, the forests, the rivers, the mountains, is not just their beauty, but the way people lived within them. Life was not separate from the natural world, it was entwined. To eat was to thank the earth, to build was to honor the trees, to travel was to follow the river's guidance. Stories like the Thunderbirds arose naturally in this world, because every part of daily existence was steeped in relationship. You did not watch a storm from behind a windowpane, you felt it shake the ground beneath your feet. You did not hear thunder as background noise, you heard it as a voice. Imagine yourself in that life. The morning begins with the faint pink of dawn spreading across the sky. You step outside your lodge or longhouse, the cool air touching your skin, dew wetting your feet. The smell of smoke lingers from the fire kept alive through the night. Around you, others are stirring, children laughing softly, elders stretching their stiff limbs, dogs barking in greeting. Soon, tasks begin, grinding corn, mending nets, gathering berries, carrying water. Work is steady but not hurried. There is time to notice the birds calling in the trees, the shifting color of the sky, the promise of rain carried in the breeze. When the day grows warm, you rest in the shade, sharing food with neighbors. Conversations flow easily, not only about chores but about the spirits that guide them. A child asks why thunder shakes the sky, and the elder smiles, ready to tell again the story of the Thunderbird. The answer is not just explanation but connection. It reassures the child that the storm is not chaos, not something to fear without meaning, but part of a greater pattern, a relationship that stretches far beyond what the eye can see. In the evening, after work is done, ceremonies may begin. Drums beat steadily, echoing the heartbeat of the land. Songs rise into the twilight, voices blending with the rustle of wind in the trees. Feathers gleam in firelight, each one carrying significance. Here, too, the Thunderbird is present, not always named but always felt. The rhythm of drums can be the rhythm of wings, the flicker of flames can be the flash of lightning. To dance is not just to move, it is to join the cycle of earth and sky, to honor the beings who shaped them. This was the world before thunder was stripped of meaning by science alone. It was not a world without knowledge, it was full of wisdom, practical and spiritual alike. People understood the migration of animals, the turning of seasons, the use of plants for medicine and food. Yet they also understood that knowledge alone could not explain everything. Story filled the spaces where mystery lingered, not to close them but to honor them. The Thunderbird stood as a bridge between what was known and what could only be felt. And so, daily life and legend were never separate. A woman grinding corn might hum a song that called for rain. A hunter might glance at the sky and whisper thanks to the Thunderbird for clear weather. A child might play with a carved figure of a bird, not as a toy but as a small echo of something sacred. To live was to believe, and to believe was to live. One sustained the other. Picture this world again, no hum of cars, no glare of screens, no constant interruption. Only the sound of river water against stone, the hiss of wind through grass, the low roll of thunder across distant hills. This was the setting where the Thunderbird spread its wings, not as a myth separate from life, but as life itself, spoken in story. And as you listen, you might think, what stories did your ancestors once whisper to explain the storms? Imagine wings so vast they shadow the valleys below, each beat stirring winds that bend the forest. When people spoke of the Thunderbird, they did not picture a bird like the hawk or the eagle, though those creatures already inspired respect. They imagined something greater, something that filled the entire sky. The Thunderbird was immense, beyond human scale, yet close enough to feel in every storm. Its feathers were said to shimmer with storm clouds, its eyes flashed with lightning, and its cry rolled across the horizon like thunder itself. To speak its name was to remember how small human beings are compared to the vastness of earth and sky. Legends describe the Thunderbird as living high above the clouds, in realms where ordinary eyes could not follow. Some said it dwelled on mountain peaks, its nest hidden where no climber could reach. Others believed it soared in a sky beyond the sky, a place only spirits could enter. Wherever it resided, its presence was known in the sudden change of weather, in the swelling of storm clouds, in the wild power of wind and rain. When thunder roared, it was the beating of its wings. When lightning flashed, it was the spark of its gaze, sharp and unrelenting. For many indigenous nations, the Thunderbird was not a monster to fear, but a guardian to respect. It was mighty, yes, and unpredictable, but its purpose was to keep balance in the world. The stories tell of the Thunderbird waging war against great serpents and water spirits that threatened human beings. These serpents, vast and powerful in their own right, were believed to live in lakes and beneath rivers, stirring up floods and destruction. Only the Thunderbird could fight them, hurling bolts of lightning into the waters, thrashing the skies with wings so strong they could split trees. Without the Thunderbird's vigilance, people believed the earth would fall into chaos. Think of the awe that must have filled those who first told these stories. You stand beneath a sky darkened by storm, your heart beating in time with the drum of thunder. The wind tugs at your clothing, rain strikes your skin. You cannot control it, cannot stop it, yet you know it is not aimless. It is alive. In that moment, you are reminded that your life is part of a greater web, a balance maintained by beings you cannot see but can always feel. The Thunderbird embodies this truth. It is both terrifying and comforting, a reminder that nature has its guardians, even if their ways remain mysterious. Oral traditions are careful things. They are not simply tales for amusement. They are lessons, woven into story so that memory will hold them long after the fire dies down. To tell of the Thunderbird was to remind each listener of humility, of gratitude, of the need to live in balance. Children grew up knowing that storms were not meaningless. Adults carried into their work and rituals the awareness that every part of the world was bound together. And elders, who had watched many seasons pass, spoke of the Thunderbird as though it were an old companion, distant but never gone. Descriptions of the Thunderbird vary from place to place, but all emphasize its grandeur. Some stories say it was so large it could lift whales from the ocean with its talons. Others describe its feathers as longer than spears, its beak capable of breaking trees. Still others speak of it cloaking itself in clouds, so that when you looked to the sky, you did not see its body but only the storm it carried. Always, it was immense, always it was greater than human sight could fully contain. And always, it carried the storm as both weapon and gift, because the Thunderbird was believed to bring rain. In a world where crops depended on timely showers, where rivers needed replenishment, rain was life itself. The people understood that too much rain brought floods, but too little brought famine. Balance was essential, and the Thunderbird was the one to strike that balance. When its wings beat and the skies opened, the parched earth drank, and the people gave thanks. In this way, reverence was born not only of fear but of gratitude. The Thunderbird was not only a reminder of power but also a source of blessing. Fear, of course, was natural. A storm could flatten a field, scatter a camp, or strike down trees with fire. Yet even this fear was framed within respect. The people did not curse the Thunderbird when storms grew harsh, they sought to understand what lesson might be within it. Perhaps the community had neglected ceremony. Perhaps someone had disrespected the balance. The Thunderbird's storms were never random, they were messages, reminders to live rightly. In this sense, the Thunderbird was not a distant myth but an active part of moral and spiritual life. Imagine hearing thunder roll across the mountains. You know the story, it is the Thunderbird, flapping its vast wings. The lightning flashes, and you picture its eye blinking, seeing you, weighing your heart. You gather your children close, not only to keep them safe but to remind them of the story. To ensure they too will remember. The storm passes, the air grows clear, the earth smells fresh and alive. And as the sun breaks through the clouds, you whisper gratitude to the sky. This was daily life for those who carried these traditions, where the Thunderbird was not apart from the storm but the storm itself, alive and purposeful. It is important to remember that these stories were not written in books at first. They were spoken, sung, danced. They lived in performance, in memory, in the sharing of voices across generations. To sit and listen was to participate in something sacred. The Thunderbird's story was not meant to be distant, a fable to analyze. It was meant to be lived. To be felt in the bones when thunder shook the earth, to be carried in the breath when rain cooled the skin. Even today, when we know the science of lightning and sound, there remains a hush when storms roll in, a hush that remembers, the Thunderbird is not just a figure of legend. It is a reminder of relationship. It tells us that human life has always been entangled with forces beyond our control. It teaches that storms, though frightening, are not only destructive but renewing. It calls us to humility, to gratitude, to the awareness that we are small yet held within a world of great power. When we imagine its wings spanning the sky, we are not only picturing a bird of myth, we are acknowledging our place beneath the vast, living canopy of the world. If you find yourself drifting into this vision, let me know in the comments what image stays with you. And so the people believed, they were never truly alone, for above them the Thunderbird kept watch. This was not a distant belief tucked away for ceremony alone, it was a living comfort, a reminder that human beings walked beneath a sky that held both danger and protection. The stories of the Thunderbird, told in quiet lodges, around evening fires, and during sacred gatherings, were woven with care. They did not simply describe a creature of vast size. They spoke of its role: guardian, bringer of balance, keeper of sacred order. Each telling was a thread in a larger fabric, and together they formed a cloak of belonging. One of the oldest stories tells of the Thunderbird's battle with the great underwater serpents. These serpents, said to live in the depths of lakes and rivers, were no ordinary animals. They were beings of immense power, coiling beneath the surface, stirring waters into whirlpools, sending floods to sweep away villages. Their eyes glowed like embers, and their bodies were said to be armored in scales harder than stone. When they rose in anger, they threatened not just people but the harmony of the earth itself. The Thunderbird was the only force that could face them. From high above the clouds, it saw their movements, felt their stirring. With wings that split the skies, it descended, hurling bolts of lightning into the waters. The clash shook the world, thunder against hiss, lightning against the flash of serpentine eyes. Sometimes the serpents were driven back, and the waters calmed, saving the people from ruin. Other times, the struggle continued for days, storms raging as the Thunderbird fought to protect the earth. The story reminded listeners that danger lurked always, but so too did protection. The storms that frightened children, that kept families huddled together in their lodges, were also battles waged on their behalf. Another story tells of the Thunderbird as the bringer of rain. For people who depended on crops of corn, beans, and squash, rain was life itself. Too little, and fields withered. Too much, and floods destroyed them. The Thunderbird, vast and watchful, controlled this balance. When it beat its wings, clouds gathered. When it blinked its eyes, lightning flashed and the sky opened. The rain that fell was more than water, it was blessing. Families sang songs of gratitude, offering thanks for the life-giving gift. Even the simplest of tasks, tending the soil, gathering harvest, was accompanied by awareness that these gifts came not from human hands alone, but from the sky itself. Some versions say the Thunderbird chose when to bring storms according to the behavior of the people. If they honored the land, respected animals, and treated one another with kindness, the Thunderbird gave gentle rains. If they disrespected the earth, took too much, or neglected ceremony, the Thunderbird's storms grew fierce, a reminder that balance had been broken. In this way, the stories carried not only wonder but also guidance. They taught humility, respect, reciprocity. The rain was not guaranteed, it had to be earned through living rightly. There are also tales of the Thunderbird as guardian of sacred places. High mountains, hidden lakes, cliffs rising sharp against the sky, these were sometimes said to be the Thunderbird's home. To enter these places carelessly was to risk offense. But to approach with offerings, with reverence, was to be granted protection. Some said the Thunderbird would appear in dreams, guiding hunters to safe paths, warning leaders of danger, or blessing communities with visions of harmony. Others believed that feathers found on journeys were signs of its presence, gifts left behind to remind people of their connection to the sky. Think of the comfort these stories must have brought. In a world where storms could destroy, where floods and droughts could endanger survival, the idea that a great protector hovered above offered reassurance. Life was fragile, but not abandoned. People could trust that there was order, that there was care, that the vast forces of nature were not indifferent but alive with purpose. At the same time, the stories carried a reminder of humility. The Thunderbird was not tame, not a servant of human will. Its storms could just as easily destroy as bless. Its battles with serpents could shake the earth, flattening forests and scattering camps. Respect was essential. People knew they were not masters of the sky, but participants in a relationship much larger than themselves. The Thunderbird demanded acknowledgement, gratitude, humility, and in return, it gave protection. Imagine sitting at the edge of a fire while one of these stories is told. The flames flicker, shadows dance across the faces of listeners. Outside, a storm might be gathering, wind rattling the lodge walls. The elder's voice is slow, steady, weaving images of vast wings and coiling serpents. Children listen wide-eyed, clutching their blankets. Adults nod quietly, remembering storms of their own youth. Everyone feels the presence of something larger than themselves. When the story ends, there is silence, not because the listeners are bored, but because they are full, with awe, with humility, with gratitude. In each version of the Thunderbird story, certain themes shine through. Power, yes, but power with purpose. Protection, yes, but protection that comes with responsibility. Human beings were never the center of the world. They were one part of a living whole, dependent on forces they could not command. To tell of the Thunderbird was to remind one another of this truth, that to live well, one must live in balance. And so, the people believed, they were never truly alone, for above them the Thunderbird kept watch. Its wings spread wide across memory and sky, a promise of both danger and safety. Even today, when storms roll across the land, you may hear in the thunder not only sound but story. You may feel in the lightning not only flash but gaze. And perhaps, in the shadow of wings unseen, you will remember what the old storytellers knew, that we are never apart from the powers that shape this world. Would you feel comfort, or fear, beneath such wings? I'd love to hear your thoughts. The fire crackles softly, your child's hand slips into yours, and you whisper the old story once more. The night is cool, the air heavy with the scent of wood smoke and pine, and above you the stars shimmer as though listening too. You tilt your head back, watching the long drift of clouds, and in their shifting shapes you see wings, vast, shadowed wings that stretch across the sky. You are not surprised. This is the world you have always known. A world where every wind carries a voice, every shadow carries a lesson, and every story is a bridge between the ordinary and the eternal. At dawn, you wake to the sound of birdsong and the rustle of wind in the grass. Your hands are busy from the first light of morning, grinding corn, mending clothing, shaping clay into vessels that will hold the water your family depends on. Yet even in these tasks, you feel the Thunderbird's presence. When clouds gather in the distance, you pause, shading your eyes. You read the sky as your grandmother once did, as her mother did before her. A storm means not only rain, but also story, reminder that the great winged spirit moves above. Your children play nearby, their laughter carried on the wind. They lift their arms, pretending to beat enormous wings, their voices rising in imitations of thunder. You smile, remembering yourself at that age, repeating the same gestures, taught by elders who wanted you never to forget. The Thunderbird is not only a figure of awe. It is part of daily life, braided into the rhythm of play and work, into the way children learn to see the world. At midday, you walk with your basket toward the river. The water runs low this season, and you pray softly for rain. Each footstep is steady, guided by paths worn smooth by generations. When you reach the river's edge, you kneel and dip your hands into the cool water, lifting it to your face. You close your eyes and imagine the Thunderbird above, wings stirring the clouds into motion. You feel both small and strong at once, small in the face of such vast power, strong because you are part of it, because your voice, your prayer, your gratitude matter. In the afternoon, you join the other women to prepare food. Together you slice roots, grind herbs, share laughter. Someone begins humming an old song. A tune that speaks of storms and lightning, of rain blessing the earth. The children join in, their voices bright, and soon the air is full of rhythm. Work is lighter with music, and the Thunderbird is there too, woven into each note. You realize that every gesture, every cut of the knife, every stir of the pot, is part of a larger ceremony, even if it feels simple. Living itself is prayer. As the sun begins to sink, painting the horizon with red and gold, you tend to the fire outside your lodge. Sparks rise into the air, climbing toward the darkening sky. Your child sits beside you, small head resting against your shoulder. The world slows. The rhythm of the day quiets into stillness. And once again, you tell the old story. You speak of the Thunderbird's wings, of storms that roll across the plains, of battles fought in secret places deep in the earth. Your voice is soft, measured, carrying the weight of memory. You do not tell the story to entertain. You tell it because it is needed. Because your child must know that life is more than what can be touched and seen. That above every day's labor, above every worry, there is a sky alive with mystery. You want your child to remember that storms are not only fear but also protection, not only danger but also blessing. When your child's eyes grow heavy, you hush your voice and simply hold the silence. The fire pops, the stars glow, and you feel a peace settle deep inside you. You are part of a long chain of mothers, of storytellers, of families who have sat in the same stillness, under the same watchful sky, and when thunder rolls in the distance, low and soft, you feel no fear. You know what it means. You know who watches. And you are grateful. The fire crackles softly, your child's hand slips into yours, and you whisper the old story once more. If this way of storytelling feels like a dream you want to return to, subscribing helps you find it again. From forest to prairie, from mountain to river, each nation painted the Thunderbird in its own colors. It is a remarkable thing, isn't it, that a single spirit can appear in so many forms, and yet never lose its power. The Thunderbird is not just one tale, told one way. It is a chorus of voices, each rising from a different land, each echoing the heartbeat of a people who looked to the sky and found meaning there. Tonight, let us wander gently across those lands, pausing to listen, pausing to feel the wonder of many traditions flowing together like rivers joining the sea. Among the Lakota, the Thunderbird is Wakan, sacred. It is a being of immense power, a guardian who dwells high above the black hills and the storm clouds. Its wings do not merely stir the air, they bring the thunder itself. Its eyes flash with lightning, striking down those forces that would threaten the balance of the world. The Lakota speak of the Thunderbird as one of the Wakinyan, the powerful spirits of thunder and storm. Sometimes feared, always revered, the Thunderbird ensures that no evil force, especially the monstrous water serpent Unkthi, may rise unchecked. Imagine living on those vast plains, where the sky stretches without end, and hearing the drumbeat of thunder. How could you not feel that something sacred was moving above? Travel eastward, into the woodlands where the Ojibwe people tell their stories. Here, too, the Thunderbird is a protector, but its role has its own colors. The Ojibwe speak of the Thunderbirds as mighty beings who live atop the highest mountains, far beyond the reach of human eyes. Their task is not only to battle the water spirits, but also to keep balance in the seasons. The spring rains, so vital for planting, are their gift. Lightning, flashing across the sky, is a reminder of their presence. In these stories, the Thunderbird is not only a guardian of people, but also of harmony in nature itself. The Ojibwe sometimes describe more than one Thunderbird. A whole society of them, each with its own duty, each carrying a share of the responsibility of the world. Doesn't that image remind us of how human communities themselves work, each person, each family carrying part of the whole? Northward still, the Menominee people carry tales of the Thunderbird in their own way. For them, the Thunderbirds dwell on a great mountain that lies far to the west. They are not only protectors, they are warriors who guard the people against the great horned snakes that slither in the depths of waters. The Menominee describe the Thunderbird as mighty enough to shake the ground with each wing beat, to unleash storms when angered, yet also to bring the rain that nourishes the fields. The battles between Thunderbird and Serpent are fierce, echoing with thunderclaps that roll across the sky. And yet, despite the violence of such images, the underlying lesson is one of safety. The people are defended, cared for, watched over by a spirit whose strength is far beyond human measure. In the Pacific Northwest, other nations speak of beings who resemble the Thunderbird in their power and form. Among the Kwakwaka'wakw neighboring peoples, the Thunderbird is a great crest figure, a presence honored in dances, carved into totems, painted with vivid colors. Its wings create thunder when they beat, and its eyes strike lightning when they blink. It is so strong, they say, that it must sometimes remove its own feathers or cloak in order to walk among humans unnoticed. These stories remind us that even the mightiest of beings can move quietly, appearing in humble form, guiding or testing those who meet them. The Thunderbird here is not only a sky spirit, it is part of the very identity of families, clans, and communities. And further south, the Ho-Chunk people tell stories of Wakaja, the Thunderbird, who is both a guardian and a teacher. Sometimes it punishes wrongdoing, sometimes it blesses those who live rightly. The lessons carried in its story are not only about the weather or the storm, but also about morality, responsibility, and the choices people make. A storm overhead, in this telling, is never only a storm. It is a reminder that life is lived under watchful eyes, that balance is maintained not only in the sky but in human hearts as well. Across all these lands, one pattern rises like a constant drumbeat: the Thunderbird is always greater than us, and yet always connected to us. It does not belong to one nation alone. It is not limited to one version or one shape. It is a spirit vast enough to hold many truths. For the Lakota, it is a sacred guardian of the plains. For the Ojibwe, a keeper of seasons and harmony. For the Menominee, a warrior who protects against serpents. For the peoples of the Northwest, a crest, a teacher, a symbol carved into the very wood of their homes and poles. Each voice adds to the whole, not replacing the others, but standing alongside them. Perhaps there is something deeply human in this. To look up at the same sky and imagine a protector, a force of all. To live in different landscapes, hear different winds, see storms in different ways, and yet always come to the sense that what moves above us is alive with meaning. It tells us that no matter where people lived, plains, forests, mountains, or coasts, they shared the wonder of mystery. They shared the recognition that power beyond human grasp was not something to conquer, but something to honor. I find myself wondering, what might it feel like if we carried that same awareness today? If every storm we heard was not only a scientific event but also a reminder of kinship, of protection, of story? Maybe the variations of the Thunderbird invite us to think about how many ways truth can be spoken. Different, yes. But always pointing towards something larger, something unifying, and so, as you drift deeper into this story, let the many voices of the Thunderbird settle over you like layers of sky. Lakota thunder rolling on the plains, Ojibwe lightning flashing over lakes, Menominee storms breaking the stillness of rivers, Northwest colors carved into cedar, Ho-Chunk lessons spoken in the rain. Many voices, one spirit. Many stories, one wonder. Which version of the Thunderbird speaks most to you? Share your favorite vision in the comments.